Hi and welcome back to Dr. Shatabdi's YouTube channel. So today I'm going to talk about something that involves how efficiently you complete your tasks in medical writing, how well you do your medical writing project, and something that is again not talked about usually um, and very often. So do you always feel confused when you start medical writing, and you get confused with how to go ahead with it? What are the steps that you need to follow? So, if you are confused with all these little things even before you start writing, that is probably because you don't have a workflow, you don't have a process to follow. So, exactly when I started medical writing 6 years ago, even I faced this exact same problem. I got a client brief, I did not know how to go about it. I was just, kind of going back and forth on drafts and research papers without following a particular process. And that was exactly why I kind of was left behind on deadlines, could not submit my works on deadlines, the quality dropped on certain kind of projects. And it was only a few projects later that I realized that I really need to set up my own process to actually, thrive as a freelance medical writer, especially when you are freelancing, because when you take up freelance projects, you are on your own. You do everything on your own. You have a deadline in front of you, you have the client brief, and you are on your own. So you actually need to set up a system and a process that you can follow throughout. So today's video is exactly on that. So let me first start with talking about client briefs. So even before you start working on a project, you need a client brief. That is the kind of baseline that you have with you, where you have details about the project, you have details about the audience, you have details about the kind of deliverable, you have details about the tone, the format, and every little thing that you want to put in your draft that the client wants from you. Once you have the brief in hand, the next step that you go ahead and you do is to start your literature search, right? So I'm not even talking about the writing process or creating the outline. All these things happen a lot before that. So you start with the literature search, you go ahead and find your papers. Okay, if you want me to do a separate video on how to find research papers, the exact papers that will help you with your article, I will do a separate video on that. But let's quickly come back to today's topic, which is doing a literature search. Once you have found out what papers are good for you or are relevant to you, you create a reference binder for them. A reference binder is basically a folder where you put all your PDF papers from where you are going to take references for your article, right? Once you have done that, you kind of start reading those papers. So now there are many new medical writers who face a lot of problem with reading papers, how to read papers. And I can also do a video on that. Absolutely, I would love to go ahead and do a separate video on how to read papers quickly and efficiently. But again, let's quickly come back to what we are discussing today. So once you have read your papers, the next step is to create an outline. Okay, the outline will have your title, your subtitles, what are your talking points inside your article. At this particular point, you can also brainstorm with AI to kind of expand upon your ideas and to understand or confirm if there is something major that you are missing out. Okay, so this is how AI can actually assist in different phases of your writing process. Now after you have done this, the most important thing that you need to do is confirm with the client if the outline is fine or not. Okay, because what happens is when we miss out on this particular step and we go ahead and write the whole draft and share it with the client, it might come back to us with major changes or feedbacks or modifications, and then we are kind of again putting in the same time and effort to kind of modify that, which we don't want, right? So make sure that the outline is first approved by the client. Once it's approved, then you start creating the draft or the format or the deliverable, right? Once you have done it, let it rest for some time, go back to it, edit and polish it, read it at least 2 times before you are sending it over to the client. Once you send it over to the client, of course, be ready to get some feedbacks, especially if you are new into medical writing. And once you have worked on those feedbacks, I think we have a polished version in front of us, which is good for you, which is good for the client. And this is the exact workflow or the process that you can follow throughout medical communications across different ranges of deliverables that you are working in medical communications. And this is the exact process that I follow throughout my projects. I hope this helps to set up your own process. Of course, a little bit of tweak here and there will of course work for you. What has exactly worked for me might not be working out for you, but this is a kind of baseline that you can create for yourself before you kind of start working on a project. I hope that helped. I will see you again on another topic in medical writing. Till then, take care, have a good day, and bye.